tornado forming right in front of us. Look at this motion. Oh, huge.
Hey, what's going on, everyone? Meteorologist Mike Linden back again with a really special guest. This is a person that you have more than likely seen across the MyRadar host of social media platforms, in the app, pretty much everywhere. We are so excited to let you know that meteorologist Matthew Cappucci has his first book coming out today, August 2nd. Of course, all the information to purchase the book is in the description box down below. And of course, he is my guest today, the maestro of mesocyclones, the prince of precipitation, meteorologist Matthew Cappucci. Matt, how you doing today?
That is the best intro I've ever heard. How long did it take you to come up with that?
Hey man, I mean, you know as well as I do, you know, being a meteorologist on camera, puns and like cheesy dad jokes are like, that's our lane, right? So, yeah, free flow.
I love it.
But again, I'm so excited to chat with you today. Of course, we've known that this book, you certainly have been working your butt off on this book. I mean, we were shooting video here in Orlando, and you would take even a couple of seconds to look over and type a couple of words in for the book. And I'm so excited for folks out there to get a look at it. And we are going to let you at home know a way to, let alone get a copy of Matthew's book, an autographed copy of the book, mind you. But we are also going to put together a whole MyRadar prize pack for 3 lucky folks. In order to be entered to win this giveaway, you gotta stick around to the end of the interview and I will let you know the details. So let's just jump right in, Matthew. Again, your book, your first book, again, the title, Looking Up, The True Adventures of a Storm-Chasing Weather Nerd. I love how endearing that title is. In the description for the book, it really stood out to me that they referred to you as Doogie Howser meets Bill Paxton from Twitter, or from Twister, rather. How do you feel about that comparison?
I love it. I think it's pretty accurate in that, you know, I try not to be sort of the stereotypical nerd where people will be like, okay, why is that nerd sitting by himself in the school cafeteria? I want people to embrace their inner nerdiness. And for me, just being a nerd, being a geek means folks are curious about something. Now, the Doogie Howser part, I think that hits the nail on the head. One of the tricky things about, you know, I look so young that I could probably eat off the kids menu. One of the tricky things is that in an industry like weather, where we're talking tornadoes, hurricanes, floods, droughts, you know, these really serious things, you want to gain trust. And it's tricky when you look this young. And so my strategy has always been to sort of give as much science as I can, to sort of throw all the terminology at folks, but teach them along the way to earn their trust, earn their respect, and really earn the reputation. And I think Doogie Howser has been sort of my strategy all along.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Nail on the head. That was a perfect comparison. So shout out to Doogie Howser there. So let's get right in here. Again, I thought the book was awesome. I love how, from a very personal perspective, everything is. I mean, it almost reads like a running blog, which is really cool. Like, get right in your headspace for these really wild weather events. So, what made you even want to write, you know, a book, effectively a memoir, at such a young age?
Well, when I was back in 3rd grade, we had these writing competitions each, like every 2 or 3 months, really once per quarter. And if you did decently, you got a bronze and a silver, then a gold. And there were no limit to how many golds people could earn, but if you got a gold medal, you got to pick out a prize. And they had these really big pencils. They were like 2 feet long, and I really wanted one. And I worked my butt off the first time. I got a bronze. And I tried harder and harder and harder, and I got a silver. In the 3rd quarter, I got a silver. And the last one, I put my heart and soul into this essay. This little composition. It was just like a 5-paragraph essay in 3rd grade. And I was sure I was going to get the gold this time. And I didn't even get a bronze. And I was devastated. And I remember my mother that day took me to Burger King into the railroad crossing. And I sat and, you know, all blubbering and tearing up a little bit, sat eating chicken tenders and watching the trains go across the train tracks, because that was my thing. And I was like, you know, I'll show them I can write well. And since then, just writing a book has always been on my mind. When I first moved to DC back in July of 2019, we very quickly entered a quite active hurricane season between Dorian and all the other hurricanes that year. And a literary agency here in Alexandria, Virginia, where I live, reached out and said, hey, you put sort of a different spin on weather. Your approach is different. Have you ever given thought to writing a book? I said, yeah, definitely. And we met the next week and we chatted back and forth about different ideas. And I wrote this whole proposal, and the proposal just wasn't personal enough. So they came up with this idea of having it be sort of a personal memoir told through different weather events. And we shopped it around, and Pegasus, the publisher, loved it. And they said, when can you do this by? Like, when would you like to get it out? 2023, 2024? And I said, heck no, I want this out as quickly as we possibly can get it out. Like, let's do hurricane season. And so that's why it's coming out on August 2nd. But that meant I got the book deal back last September. I had to have it done by January 1st. So I wrote this whole thing, 93,000 some odd words, in 87 days, which is why you saw me in Ubers typing. And that time we all went to Topgolf, I'm typing on my phone, and it was a lot.
I can only imagine, but again, the fruits of your labor now, I mean, it's manifested physically, which is so cool. Nothing like a story of spite to inspire you to get a book done in less than 3 months. So when did it all start for you when it comes to like your light bulb moment, when you first decided, weather, meteorology, this is for me? Was your first word barometer?
So one of my first words was actually an attempt at saying anemometer, or really wind meter. I'd be like 2 years old, and I would stare out the window and see this wind meter spinning on my neighbor's roof, and I was just obsessed with them. I was obsessed with those, and then I was a weird kid, and now I'm a quirky adult. But the other thing I was obsessed with were those little, the ventilation tubes they have at landfills. I don't know why, I love those. But anyway, I watched the wind meters, and I was just like, that is so cool. Then I was watching an episode of House Hunters International when I was like 4 or 5 with my mother, and they had 2 water spouts in the distance. I was like, what are those? I was just drawn to them. And then my dad showed me a documentary on tornadoes when I was 4 or 5, and I was just hooked ever since. When I was 7, I saved my money to buy a video camera so I could storm chase. And by storm chase, I mean ride around the neighborhood on a metal bicycle, which you're not supposed to do, but I did. And it's just been like that ever since. I always wanted to be a meteorologist, a TV meteorologist, a digital meteorologist. Always wanted to storm chase. And I remember being in high school and just dreaming about going to Oklahoma. I had read about all these mystical places, Moore, Oklahoma, Joplin's, or all these places where big weather events had happened. And I had always dreamt of going there, experiencing, seeing what it was like, seeing how sort of the people live out there. And I remember thinking in my freshman year of high school, I hope someday I get to have the money to go on a road trip once. Like I thought, maybe someday once I'll get to go on a trip to Oklahoma. And somehow everything has happened since has I get to storm chase and be paid for it now. And the job you guys have given me is a dream. Just everything's sort of come together. And so this story is not just about weather. It's about really manifesting how life has a way of working itself out.
Now, your studies took you to Harvard. Of course, you're a Massachusetts guy, so there it is, Harvard, of course, an amazing school to attend. But you effectively created your own major there for an incredibly storied university like Harvard. You would think that there would be more meteorologists that have come out of that school, but you had to create your own major. Can you break down how exactly you did that and what your experience was like there?
Yeah, so to be honest, I never wanted to go to Harvard. I only applied there for the Walmart price match guarantee. And that Cornell, great meteorology school, Ivy League school, looked great on paper, but they wanted $37,000 per year. And I just didn't have that kind of money, neither did my family. And so I figured if I got into Harvard has the best endowment out of anyone, they give the most money. If I got in there, Cornell would match my offer. So then I went out to Cornell, it wasn't the school for me, and I wound up at Harvard, but then I had to think, how the heck is this going to work? Like, they don't have meteorology. But my mother and I were looking, and they have this option to do a special concentration to make your own major. Now, most proposals, if not all proposals, are rejected. Only like 1 student per year gets to do any type of special concentration. And so it required 40 pages of an application. It required finding an advisor who coincidentally happened to be someone who I crossed paths with when I was like 13 or 14. You have to get the signature of the next closest department. So in my case, Earth and Planetary Sciences. And the lead tutor of EPS, Earth and Planetary Sciences, told me that I was too young to know what I wanted to do, and he stood in my way. So not only did I have to go through this whole process, but I had to write a rebuttal against this other department. And for the first time in history, in Harvard history, we overturned a rebuttal and I got my special concentration. But essentially that meant I'd take some of my classes at Harvard, I'd go to the grad school sometimes, I'd go to MIT 3 days a week. Some classes were just classes on my own and independent study. And yet it all worked out in a very bizarre way. And it certainly was not easy. It was the most rigorous, difficult, emotionally draining 4 years of my life. I really did not think I'd see the finish line. I didn't think I wanted to see the finish line. I thought I'd just, call it quits at one point. But somehow got through, and it seems to have paid off bountifully.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say, let alone to attend, a school for 4 years with a set program and structure. It's one thing to do that. It's another to create that program and structure and set it up for success, right?
Yeah, but I think that's kind of the story of my life, in that every role I've had so far has been a role that didn't exist before. Like the Washington Post, where I've worked, that my job there didn't exist. They called me up. They're like, hey, come on down and do whatever it is you do. Or the same thing, I work for Fox 5 here in Washington, D.C. They're like, hey, do whatever it is you do. We like what you do. Or above all, you guys, y'all have been reaching out to me for years and saying, hey, whatever it is you do, we like that. Come on down. And the opportunities you guys have given me to really put my own spin on things and to forge my own path. You've given resources, you've given support, and I think it's really paid off so much. And so there have been so many entities like you guys, like MyRadar, who have let me try something new. And that's, I like making my own path. A little less traffic on that path.
Now, in the book, of course, there's a lot of locations that you cover, a lot of different weather events. Of course, in the book is a shout out to MyRadar, which is awesome. A shout out to our founder and CEO, Andy, and the R2D2 in his office, which stood out to me when I interviewed for the company as well. So yep. I love that made mention in the book. Of course, you talked about that tornado coverage you did for us in Annapolis. I mean, there's so much. Is there anything in the book that really sticks out the most, or maybe something that maybe people wouldn't expect to find in a book about severe weather and storm chasing that you want to shed some more light on?
So that's a really good question. I think one of the things in the book, and this may not have as much to do about severe weather, but it does have to do with sort of the process. I think one of the challenges is that we learn all these equations, we learn all these numbers, we learn all these perfectly physical cases in school. We're taught how to be analytical scientists. We're taught that these ingredients, if they are arranged in this way, will combine in this way, and this will be the result. The atmosphere is pure chaos. We know sort of the rules going in, but how it manifests can be very different. You can have the same environment, and 2 times it'll do 2 completely different things. And so I think one of the things I really try to shed light on in the book is explaining how and why we storm chase, how we go about it, how we predict these events, and it shows sort of all the times that Mother Nature threw me a curveball. It shows all the times that there were hiccups in the forecast, that I made the wrong call. So often we only see the plus, and then that's true in life in general. I mean, look at social media. Everybody only posts their wins. No one ever posts their losses. But the losses are where we learn. And so in this book, yeah, you see the wins, you see the chases and there are so many cool pictures from the times where the chases turned out the way that I wanted them to, and I got to see what it is that I wanted to. But I also have a chapter called When Everything Goes Wrong, or When Things Don't Work Out Right. And I think it's important people see that things go wrong and what we can learn from them. But that's also true with life in general. And that's one thing I tried to share in the book, is sort of more about my personal life, the things that have sort of, been on my mind, or the things that are sort of, that still are on my mind, and things that I haven't really shared elsewhere. That in the book, I felt that if people are reading a book of mine, it's because they want to know more about me, and it's only fair that I sort of share everything about me, even things that I haven't really before. And so this book is an episode of being very open, both personally and professionally.
You win or you learn, right? And like you said, whether it's professionally or it's in life, and especially so on Weather Twitter. I feel like we're learning every single day on Weather Twitter. Big shout out to them. So Matthew, of course, your career, you're effectively still getting started here. You mentioned you've always wanted to write a book. Do you want to write additional books? Do you have like a bucket list destination that you'd like to travel to expand upon? What's on the Matthew Cappucci meteorological bucket list?
Yeah, so this is just the start. This is my first 24 years on this planet. Many folks have said, you're too young to write a memoir, but this book wouldn't be filled with pages if I didn't have a story to tell. I think everybody has a story. I think most folks just don't write them down, and I'm hoping that people enjoy my story and enjoy coming along for the ride. But I've accomplished maybe 5 to 10% of what's on my bucket list. I have many more places to go to. I want to go to the South Pole. I want to see a solar eclipse from a polar ice cap. I want to go to Christmas Island and see the crab migration. I want to storm chase in Argentina. I want to go to the Bacon Range in Australia and watch a meteor shower. I want to see a fire tornado. All these things. I'd like to be in the eye of a Category 5 hurricane. And all these things are things that would be stories to tell and would really, be memories that would last a lifetime. And I hope to experience these things. And honestly, MyRadar is the perfect vehicle to do that. I feel like even, Annapolis, the tornado that I chased for MyRadar, that was my most memorable storm chase ever and the most personally meaningful one, and one where I learned the most. I think we're just getting started here at MyRadar. We have a ton of exciting stuff ahead, and I know you and I have been talking behind the scenes, but I think, honestly, all the things that we do together could be a book of their own. We have a lot in store.
Now, I solicited some questions from users on Twitter, Matthew, and I wanted to ask you one that really stuck out in my mind here, and big shout out to Storm Chaser Aaron Jajak. I feel like he would like this question here. So what is your favorite part about storm chasing? Of course, you're there to be, to let people know about ground truth for some potentially life-threatening situations, but there's so much that goes into storm chasing, from the preparation to the debriefing afterward to meeting people along the way, or again with Aaron Jajak, stopping at all these hole-in-the-wall restaurants and just seeing that there's so much out there. What's your favorite part about storm chasing?
I think there are two aspects that really stand out to me. And obviously, I love the weather aspect of it. You cannot beat being a scientist and existing in a real-life classroom, a real-life laboratory. That's the biggest thing I love. But there are two things that don't really have as much to do with the weather. Number one is the fact that I tend to be a very type A person. Everything in my life is planned out. Every job I have, every appointment I have, I plan to a T. When I'm storm chasing, you can't plan that way. You have to sort of roll with the punches. And yeah, exactly. You have to be ready to follow the atmosphere's caprice and do things on a whim and make split-second decisions. And I love that, because there are times I'll win, times I'll lose, but if nothing else, it forces me to ditch that classic type A, have everything in a planner type thing. I love the sort of organized chaos of it. The other thing, too, is that storm chasing takes me to places I'd never otherwise go. I mean, let's face it. Nobody is going to Colby, Kansas for tourism. Nobody is going to, McLean, Texas. Nobody's going to McCook, Nebraska for a regular reason. And yet storm chasing has brought me to all these places. And these are wonderful places with amazing people. And stopping at gas stations, stopping at hotels, having breakfast with random people I meet in the lobby is one of my favorite things, because especially nowadays, this country is so incredibly divided. People in the cities just don't understand what people in rural areas go through every day, and vice versa. It's like two completely different Americas. And yet, every time I leave the East Coast and I go to these places, or vice versa, I think to myself how similar everybody really is. I think to myself how if folks could just sit down and have a meal together, they'd realize they're the same exact, really same situation, same needs, same goals, same hopes, same, everyone just wants to raise a family, to have some smiles, laughs, memories, and be able to do that. And I just think to myself, if more people could sit down with someone who they, on paper, is vastly different from them, we'd be in a much better place. And storm chasing lets me do that. Storm chasing sort of pushes me outside what I'm used to, and exposes me to new people who, many of whom have become really close friends.
Meteorology and weather is the great unifier, right? I mean, it affects all of us in different ways and in different climates. So it's a beautiful thing. That was an awesome answer. So I figured we'd end this with something really fun, and I know you're really going to like this question. If, again, for those of you that are watching and you don't know at this point that you are looking at the #1 Waffle House fan in the world, I mean, I don't know if you're really paying attention. So we've got to talk about Waffle House here, Matthew. Of course, I loved your shout out in the book to try to get a sponsorship from them. It's hilarious. Why Waffle House? For people out there that don't know, Waffle House stays open unless things are really, really rough. So FEMA uses whether Waffle Houses are open or closed to make determinations upon how bad things really are on the ground. So, Storm Chasers love Waffle House, but I'm curious as to what your affinity for Waffle House, where it began, and why it is your favorite place on earth.
Hey, it's in the dedication. So twofold. Number one, I am both 8 and 80 years old. I'm a big kid at heart. I just love, rolling up to a place and getting cheap, greasy, delicious food. And
don't we all?
The grilled cheese sandwich and hash browns, it's food that's good for the soul. But the other thing too, and this will be a surprisingly poignant answer, I think, is that Waffle House, I think, is the way that religion and people in general should operate. And that sounds like a crazy thing to say. But here's the thing. You walk in a Waffle House, they're open 24 hours a day. They don't care when you get there. They're just happy to see you. They don't care how you're dressed when you walk in. I could walk in a suit and tie. I could walk in hardly wearing pants. They don't care. They don't judge you based on appearance. They don't judge you based on when you show up. You might go to Waffle House and there's a billionaire sitting next to someone who just got out of prison the day before, and yet no one judges. It's okay. All financial backgrounds, all demographic backgrounds, all ethnic backgrounds, everybody goes there, and it's almost a communion of sorts because people share meals sitting next to someone they probably would never in any other context. And I love that. I love the fact that Waffle House gives people second chances. I love the fact that, I brought people to Waffle House that I wouldn't probably consider bringing home for Thanksgiving. And just, Waffle House is a place where no one judges, and they're just there to see and to share a meal. And I love that.
So then I've got to ask you then, I think you alluded to it there and didn't say a waffle, which I feel like is wild, or you did say hash browns. What is your go-to order at the Waffle House?
So I'll tell a brief story. Back when I was about 2, 3, 4, 5 years old, my mother and I would go down to a place called Friendly's. It was just down the street from us, and
shout out to Friendly's. Grew up in the Northeast. Shout out to Friendly's, man. The clown sundae. Come on, how many childhood memories do we all have eating those clown sundaes?
I completely forgot that you were.
Big shout out to Friendly's.
And always the brain freeze. When you'd have the fribbles, it'd go up the straw, and then you'd have the wicked brain freeze for a little while. I completely forgot you were in Friendly's territory. But yeah, for the folks who are watching, you don't know, Friendly's was this little diner that we had. And you could go there, and for like $2, $3 on Wednesdays, they'd have kids' meals where you could get a grilled cheese, fries, a side, and a fribble or a shake. And an ice cream at the end too. So I remember going one day with my mother, and I was probably 4 or 5 years old. And the waitress we always had was Marilyn. She was the sweetest older lady. And with my little, half toothless grin after the meal, I said, "Marilyn, that was the best grilled cheese I've ever had." And I was ecstatic. I was like, "This is a Michelin star grilled cheese." And she said, "Oh, would you mind, coming and telling the chef she's been having a rough day?" I was like, "You mean I get to visit the kitchen?" It'd be like if I was going to see NASA Mission Control. I was like, "Mom, Marilyn says I can go to the kitchen." And I remember I was so excited because they had these double saloon-style doors. And I was like, it's like a country western. I'm like a cowboy. I'm going to the Friendly's kitchen. And I walk in, and it's like 5 million degrees in there. And the dew points are probably through the roof. It was like a steam sauna room in there. And they have this older woman who, she's just working over a stove, and she is just drenched in sweat. And she's older, slightly larger woman who's just kind of hunched over the thing and is just working her rear off. And she looked up, and she just had a puzzled look in her face. And I said, "Are you the cook?" And she said, "Yeah." I said, "That was the best grilled cheese I've ever had in my life. You have a gift." And she'd been having a tough day, so it brought a tear to her eye, and she picked me up and gave me a big hug. And so after that, every time we went to Friendly's, I'd wander in there and just, wander in the kitchen, see if Carol was there. And every time she was. And, her grandkids lived far away, so she started coming over for Christmas, for Easter, for birthdays, for surprise visits. And then we'd go over. She lived just down the road, and she became a grandmother of sorts to me. And her husband, Smitty, Warren Smith, became a de facto grandfather. And when I was about 14 or 15, Carol passed away, and I gave the eulogy at her funeral on what an amazing friendship, relationship, a gift could come out of something as simple as a grilled cheese sandwich. And I think it's true. It goes back to the Waffle House. So every time I go to the Waffle House, I have a grilled cheese sandwich, not with bacon sometimes, but a grilled cheese sandwich and hash browns. And I think about all the good things in my life that have started from a simple grilled cheese sandwich.
That is an absolutely beautiful story. I'm glad that we finally got the Matthew Cappucci Waffle House origin story. I mean, we've seen Batman and Spider-Man, we've seen all that, but I'm glad that we finally got to the bottom of that. That's really cool. And as I mentioned before, weather, a great unifier. Food, a fantastic unifier as well. And take that as a lesson for the people out there that are watching or listening, that just those little compliments can go so far, and you never know, I guess, where a grilled cheese is going to take you in life. It's a beautiful story. So on that note, let's get back to the original, the beginning of this interview here, that we are going to be giving away 3 signed copies of your book, Looking Up, along with some other goodies from MyRadar. Here is how you enter to win the book. Comment down below on our YouTube channel, and if you're not watching on YouTube, head over to youtube.com/MyRadar. You'll see this video there in the comment section. We want to know what your go-to order at Waffle House is. Is it a grilled cheese? Is it a pecan waffle? I don't know if I just started a whole war there, whether it's pecan or pecan. My favorite is a pecan waffle with hash browns. Let us know in the comments what your favorite go-to order at Waffle House is. And do not forget to use the hashtags #MyRadar and #LookingUp. You also need to be subscribed to the YouTube channel and click on that thumbs up button on it as well. So just a couple of things. I'm going to run through it again. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, like this video right here, and in the comments, we want to know your go-to order and those hashtags, #MyRadar and #LookingUp. We will choose somebody totally out of random that follows those guidelines there. And I know maybe more than anything that Mr. Cappucci has done for us, he is super excited. I'm sorry to speak for you, Matthew. I know that you are super excited to know what the people out there like at Waffle House, right?
I am beyond ecstatic. Like, that is, if we could get data from folks, this is the #1 piece of data I want. And honestly, if these people, if I'm storm chasing their area, if they reach out, I will go to Waffle House with them. It will twist my arm. I will go.
A Waffle House meetup. Very cool. So again, Matthew, I was so excited to chat with you. I mean, we talk, of course, all the time, but very excited to chat with you about your book. A very special moment, I would imagine, in your life where, I mean, again, something that you'll be able to physically carry with you for the rest of your life. Is there anything else that you'd like to mention that maybe we did not touch on?
I think I'm just above all grateful for you guys and for all my employers, because I don't work a 9-to-5 job. My job will never be 9 to 5. I don't work in a regular schedule or a regular place. My job is as quirky and bizarre as I am, and yet you guys give me a huge leash. You let me try whatever it is I want. You let me experiment, and I think that works. And we're doing so much new stuff at MyRadar, and it's just a privilege and a pleasure to be part of that. And I hope you personally know how grateful I am for this, but everybody at the company, there's some damn good people working here.
Yeah, big shout out to everyone part of the MyRadar family, and Waffle House content coming soon. You best believe that is definitely something that we want to make happen. I just think it would be so much fun. So again, Matthew's book is coming out today, August 2nd, across almost all major booksellers. The link is down below in the description. Just click on that and it will take you to the page through the publisher. You can find, again, the book through a ton of different retailers. There are a ton of them. So again, click on that link. Again, the book, Looking Up, The True Adventures of a Storm-Chasing Weather Nerd by one Matthew Cappucci. We're so excited for the book to get out there into the public. And of course, this will certainly not be the last time that you see Matthew here across the MyRadar host of video platforms and social media platforms. So for Matthew, I have been meteorologist Mike Linden. Have a good one, everyone out there. Stay dry. We'll catch you later. See ya.
Follow MyRadar on social media: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Download MyRadar on iOS, Android, Amazon Alexa, Xbox, and Windows.